Hey there, welcome to the CMMC Compliance Guide podcast. I'm Stacey.
And I'm Brooke.
From Justice IT Consulting, where we help businesses like yours navigate CMMC and NIST 800-171 compliance. We're hired guns getting companies fast-tracked to compliance, but today we're here to give you all the secrets for free. So if you want to tackle it yourself, you're equipped to do so. Let's dive into today's episode and keep your business on track. Today we're unpacking highlights from the CS5 East 2025 conference, the biggest cybersecurity and compliance event for the Defense Industrial Base. So, Brooke, for the folks who may not know, what exactly is CS5 and how is it different from other CMMC conferences that you've gone to?
Well, as you said, it's the largest CMMC conference out there. It's got lots of great information. I think they said they had a little over 1,100 people sign up to go. That's the people that, from what I understand, that's the people that signed up to go, not vendors and staff or anything. But that's 1,100 attendees. So it's a good showing. It's real good. It grew out of a few organizations. It's changed over the years, but is essentially the same conference as it started out as, just on steroids now. So anyway, started out with CIC. That was put on by a company called FutureFeed. It's a great GRC tool if you need one. So they put on a conference, a really good conference, lots of really good information. Mark Berman is started FutureFeed and this CIC conference. The Cyber AB also had their own conference, but they decided to team up with the CIC conference. The folks over at FutureFeed for the CIC conference, and they split up a new company, I guess, or something anyway, to run it, called Forum Makers, and so Forum Makers now runs it, but it's the Cyber AB and CIC combined, and they called it SEEK, which is CEIC, which was CMMC Ecosystem Implementation Conference. So they call it. There was one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast, and the first one I went to, it's first CIC conference actually, I think was in San Diego, and I really enjoyed it. I've actually never been to San Diego before. Really great conference, so we're at Seek East and Seek West. Then they joined forces with the CS2 series of conferences, and that was put on by Summit 7, I believe. CS5 now is the cybersecurity supply chain, and 5 from the roughly, I guess, however you count them, but 5 different conferences from before: Cyber AB, CIC, CS2, and Seek East and Seek West. So, which those are really kind of the same conference, just on 2 different coasts. But who's counting, right? So anyway, so they call it CS5. So provide lots of great content. They've been adapting as they go. They had a bunch of round tables this last time, which were pretty good. You could sit down on the round tables and be part of the discussion. So there were smaller audiences. So it was really good. But anyway, that's what CS5 is and what it stood for. Next year is going to be back in San Diego again. Or excuse me, CS5 West will be in San Diego again, I think in April, I believe. But it'll be there at a brand new Gaylord they just built. And so the Gaylord, from what I understand, will be less than a year old when they have I can't even get right when they have CS5 out there. So anyway, good conference to go to. Lots of really good information.
It seems like CS5 provided a lot of powerful sessions, but there was one in particular where they talked about Operation Midnight Hammer. Can you enlighten us with a little bit of background on that?
Absolutely. So Operation Midnight Hammer, for those of you who don't know or may have forgotten, or maybe you're thinking, you might remember it anyway. Operation Midnight Hammer was the strike of the bunker buster bombs that the United States dropped on Iran's nuclear facilities just recently, or relatively recently. So that they discussed that, and it really filled in a hole for me. Filled in part of a hole. It was just very interesting to find out, and it's a recent real-world example of of information that we're trying to protect for us, because we don't want somebody else to do that what we did to Iran to us, right? So the Operation Midnight Hammer started way back, and the Pentagon had a briefing and discussed a lot of this too. So, but they also had some good visuals with it, and it was impactful and very good, relative and timely information. So, but the Operation Midnight Hammer started way back, I believe, in like 2008. They hired one guy basically to find out everything he could about the Fordo facility, which is one of the nuclear test sites. And then they ended up hiring another guy, and then eventually a staff. And their sole job was the Fordo facility, from what I understand, from what they report. And so I would guess that there were also the same teams put together for the other sites, but that was their sole thing. So they looked at what kind of material was extracted, what kind of dirt and rock and all that kind of fun stuff, how much was extracted. They looked at what it was made out of, how many ventilation shafts, the electrical stuff. They went over all the stuff that you wouldn't necessarily think would be really that important. Information to keep not secret but controlled, right? And so they didn't go over exactly how they found all this out, but and they're not going to release that. I'm sure. I'm sure some of it was by satellite, but there was a lot of information there that they showed that had to be gained somehow. And so anyway, and they put up this. The visual was that they had the Fordo site in a picture, and then they had all the different categories of things that they gleaned information from, like the material they pulled out, electrical, ventilation shafts, all that kind of fun stuff. And then they said, basically all this is the Iranian equivalent of CUI. And so they stamped CUI over all that. But that's a really good reminder why we're doing this and what we're trying to protect. We're trying to protect our warfighters, trying to protect our military advantage, trying to protect our assets here at home. The big thing it helped me with is we always try to explain to clients why this matters. Easy to come up with the example of look at the new generation of Chinese fighter jet, the Humvee, the ships, and I think some laser systems that are like brand spanking new. Somehow China has a lot of stuff that looks amazingly like our stuff, So it's easy to point out that. And that's manufacturing. But what about other areas? Why do other areas matter? And one of those, we have some construction clients, and those construction clients will, well, why does it matter? If we're, where we're bulldozing dirt or what we're doing, And I was like, well, I'm sure they can tell something from that. Well, now we have an example to use that says, hey, this is an example that the DOW the DOW showed and explained of what we used that would be equivalent COI, what we used to gain information to attack Iran. And so very successfully attack Iran, it looks like. So anyway, it helped us out because construction companies are in even more of a pickle, as we've discussed, because of several situations, but even more of a pickle than manufacturers are. So anyway, it's very insightful. The other part I will say about not just Operation Midnight Hammer, but before that with Iran, if you'll remember way back in the day, Stuxnet was a computer virus that attacked a air-gapped network. It turns out that was the United States and Israel that did that, because actually unbelievably, the United States actually admitted it and said, yeah, that was us. So probably shouldn't do that, but neither here nor there, I guess. But everybody knew anyway. But the Stuxnet virus, it was very specifically engineered to do some very specific things. So they're centrifuges that enrich uranium. And so they would report the correct, for instance, they would report the correct speed. They're very precise. They have to spin at an exact speed to extract that or enrich that uranium properly. While it would report the right speed, it'd be spinning it either slower or faster, not doing what it needed to do. And so eventually they figured it out that it was us. And I think part of that came after some centrifuges broke because they spun too fast or something. I don't really remember, but they ended up figuring out it was us. And they figured out that, oh, crap, we were way behind the times because not only could we not protect against something simple like that, I mean, we were air gapped and they got across, we've got to do something about it. So Iran really ramped up their cybersecurity and offensive and defensive cyber operations. And so as a direct result of Stuxnet, they ramped that up and they started attacking us relentlessly, I should say. Anyways, there's lots of, examples of, Iranian government being behind all sorts of things. And there was just we went over our threat matrix notices anyway today during our tech meeting, and there was one from about Iran on there about attacking over 100 governments. So it ramped up as a direct correlation to Stuxnet. And so now, do you think that as a result of Operation Midnight Hammer, you think something might happen? It's probably a really good bet. And so anyway, all that was very insightful, and it made a big impact. At least it made a big impact on me. I would assume it made a big impact on other people, but anyways, big impact on me, and it's very good information.
So let's shift some gears over to the CMMC program itself. What were the biggest updates from the Cyber AB on the topic of CMMC?
Sure. So some of the updates were, everybody still not everybody, I should say. There are still people that cling to, there's going to be some reason that this gets delayed. Now it's the government shutdown. The government shutdown is going to delay it. The government shutdown will not delay it. It will go into effect on November 10th. Now, the reality is it'll go into effect on November 10th, but it may not actually be – there may not be anybody writing it into contracts on November 10th, right? So that part could be delayed, but the starting date won't be delayed. So that means that November 10th, 2026 is still November 10th, 2026. No matter when they get this off the ground, actually written into contracts, November 10th, 2026 is when Phase 2 starts, right? So it is progressing and not stopping. So that's the government shutdown won't affect that part of it. In fact, there's much of this. There's a lot of I think on the Cyber AB town hall last night. It was just last night I watched the October one. They said the same thing, and they showed a little graphic of all the things that will and won't be proceeding with the government shutdown. And there was only one thing. It was some administrative program manager kind of thing. So, but everything else is proceeding as it should be. The background checks or the background checks or the Tier 3 assessments for CMMC or CMMC certified professionals and assessors and all that. They're proceeding. That's one thing. I figured it's just a background check. I'm surely those will be delayed. Nope, that office is working and they're trudging right along. So anyway, November 10th is coming. That's when it's going to go into effect, and it's not going to be delayed. Maybe written into contracts will be delayed a little bit, but other than that, it's coming. Another couple of things at the time at CS5, they said 384 joint assessments or assessments have been completed. And so that number is now over 400 as of the Cyber AB town hall last night. So it's over 400 now. So they're marching right along on those. There's I don't remember how many are in progress as of it's already changed, but as of the CS5, there were 74 in progress, 83 authorized see-through PAOs. I think that has changed to 84, but there's several in the wings there waiting. And the number of CMMC certified assessors keeps growing every month, so that's really good. That's really a key to this whole thing is the certified CMMC certified assessors. If we don't have enough, it doesn't matter how many C3 PAOs we have. Because a lot of C3 PAOs are one and two person companies, or maybe a little larger, but even larger ones depend on CCAs that are 1099 employees, right? So there may be CCAs that are 1099 employees for several different C3 PAOs. That does not increase the number of CCAs. It just means that they're working their rear end off. So, it's that number of CCAs really needs to go up a lot. And what does concern me a little bit is it's not. I guess it kind of concerns me and it kind of doesn't, but it's not skyrocketing. If it was skyrocketing, you already kind of have to worry about the experience level of some of the CCAs. And I don't mean that as a slight or as anything about the general CCA community. They're all most of the ones I met are very, very good. There are some new ones who don't have much experience. They're trying very hard to make sure that doesn't happen, though. So with the requirements for CCAs, but there's if that number were skyrocketing, I guess you'd probably have to worry about that as well. So. It's good for those CCA numbers to increase. We need a lot more of them. I don't know if we're going to get a lot more quickly, but we do need a lot more CCAs to cover all this demand for the assessments, certification assessments.
So it seems like there was some chatter about the Cyber AB taking on some new roles at CS5. Could you enlighten us with what that may be?
Sure. So Cyber AB is also working on security controls framework, and they've mentioned that a few months back in one of the town halls, and maybe more than one of the town. I believe it was more than one of the town halls. In fact, they mentioned it last night as well. But they're working on that, and that is something that I believe Texas has adopted. And one of their new bills, and there's I believe, is a kind of a safe harbor bill. If you adopt these, the cyber security controls framework, and run your business by that framework, then you're basically in a safe harbor for cybersecurity claims against you. I don't know all the details about that, but that's the overall thing. So the security controls framework is a little more comprehensive than NIST 800-171. NIST 800-171 really is more about confidentiality than anything else. But anyway, that security controls framework seems like something really good that they're building out and what they're working on. So they're pretty excited about that. And they also talked about plans to update the licensing program and overhaul the practitioner path, which is what really needs to be done. It's pretty easy to get the RP the registered practitioner right now, so it does need to be overhauled. I don't know about the RP Advanced, RPA. I haven't really looked at that one much, and I just haven't looked into it, so I don't know how much more difficult that one is than the RP. But I do know most people consider the CCP the starting place of where you start to really, as far as learning goes, and a certification or some stamp of approval, the CCP is really where it starts to show that you've taken some good training and you know what you're talking about. And they also talked about relaunching the C3PAO accreditation process also.
So let's pivot a bit and talk about service providers. There's been a lot of confusion around MSPs, CSPs, and ESPs. Did that come up often?
There are all sorts of TLAs, three-letter acronyms that come up, yes. So everybody is still not. I keep saying everybody, and not everybody. There are still people that are confused about the difference between ESPs and CSPs and MSSPs and MSPs and all that kind of fun stuff. So the overarching category is ESP, which is external service provider, and under that you have CSPs, which is a cloud service provider like Microsoft or Amazon or something like that. Then, other than that, you have the category as ESPs, not a CSP. So, and that's what it's called. So, in that category is MSPs, a managed service provider, or MSSP, managed security services provider. And a managed services provider is that's what we are. We're a outsourced IT company basically, and so that's what an MSP is. Managed security services, they focus specifically on security services like SOC and SIEM and stuff like that. But there's people that are confused about what makes one or the other. There's a good definition in the Federal Register of CSP. Go read that. It makes it very clear what a CSP is, right? Everything else is going to be an ESP. If you're providing some services that don't handle, if you're providing some services to an organization seeking certification, so somebody that wants to get certified, then you're going to be an ESP, not a CSP. So very clear, right? But there are certain things that they talked about what MSPs and RPs and all that kind of fun stuff. RP is a registered practitioner. It's an individual, and I guess actually RPO is a registered practicing organization. So that's the company that employs the RP. So there are limits of what an ESP can do for you, right? They can't do everything for you. Even we tell our clients, hey, we'll help you out. We'll help you get that get ready for that certification quicker than otherwise. Easy button or rocket assist or whatever you want to call it. It's there's different marketing language all around it, but the fact of the matter is that no matter who it is, the ESP cannot do it for you. They can do a lot of it for you and with you. There's a lot you have to do, and there's a lot that you have to be part of. And not only that, when it comes time for a certification assessment, the company getting assessed, the one seeking the certification, they have to know and understand what the heck their they have to know and understand what the heck their SSP says. They can't just go, I don't know, ask him. They have to have some knowledge about it. They don't have to have deep knowledge, but after all, everybody, no matter how big the company is, everybody outsources some stuff, right? And that's because they want to focus on this, and they want somebody else to do the rest. So, an ESP and MSP, they can do a lot of that work for you and help guide you through it, but they can't do it for you. And so people need to understand that. Companies that are looking to be certified need to understand that. So, and then there are different levels of companies that do it for you and with you, right? We have a tendency to do as much as we can and to hold our clients' hands and walk them through it and explain everything, how everything works and what your options are. Some providers say, here's our solution right here, and you put that in place and you're good. We have a tendency to think that that's not the way to do it because not everybody fits in this little cookie cutter box. So, and then when you realize that you don't necessarily fit in that cookie cutter box, you got to figure out how to address the pieces that don't fit in. And that's where we help our clients, is trying to figure out what to do with those things that don't necessarily fit in a nice, neat little box. So, but that's a big thing with MSPs, ESPs, CSPs, and all that.
So it seems like there was some conversation about what CMMC doesn't do. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Sure. I think you're talking along the lines of legal immunity. So CMMC, if you've put everything in place, does not provide legal immunity to anything. However, if you've put CMMC in place as you should, have all the documentation, and you're doing the things you say that you're doing, because no solution is 100% bulletproof, right? If there's some breach or something that happens as a result, you can say, look, here's all our documentation. Here's what all we had in place. You can use the old Apple excuses that it was a very sophisticated attack, and I guess more than just Apple says that. But anyway, but if you have everything put in place, you have all your documentation, you can prove that you were doing what you said you were doing, then you don't have legal immunity, but you've got something to fall back on and something that will help you out a lot. So while it's not legal immunity, it certainly does help that you can prove all this. It's a lot better than not having all the documentation in place, not having all the items, or even maybe having all the technical controls in place but not having the documentation to back it up. You're not nearly as in good a place with the technical controls in place as if you would be as if you had documented everything. Because that way, when something happens, you can say, I was doing everything I was supposed to. In fact, I was doing more than I was supposed to, and it still happened. So you have some, just like the Texas Safe Harbor law we were talking about a minute ago. You have some help on that. Well, it's not a Texas Safe Harbor law is a law, I guess. Anyway, but so I guess that does provide some sort of immunity of sorts. CMMC does not provide immunity, but does provide a lot of help.
I know we kind of talked about the complexities of the construction industry with CMMC. It seems like there was some discussion at CS5 about COI in construction. Could you go into that a little bit deeper?
Yeah. So as we talked about a minute ago, there is a lot of nuances and the ways that construction companies work that are hard to cover and not addressed well with CMMC. One of those things is, from what I understand, and we've got some construction clients, and I didn't even realize this, but I guess on some federal DoD projects in construction, they issue a different cage code or something for different projects, and so that's an issue when you've been certified and you have all your cage codes listed, and there's another cage code that comes into question there. How do you? That's not in your certified list now, and it can't be added after a certain amount of time. What I understand is if you've got a see-through PAO that understands and knows what's going on, I think they can help out there. That's the gist I got. So, but it's not that's just one of those things that the government didn't think about, right? How do you do all this? Well, once you lock in these cage codes, they're in concrete and you can't change them supposedly. But yet here on construction projects, we're going to issue temporary cage codes over here. So, now I don't know all the particulars about that, but that's how it was explained to us in that session. The other thing is that construction companies, they have to think about their construction trailers and job sites and how CUI is performed there, or how CUI is accessed there. If you are on a base, it's a little bit different. If there's there may be other projects that have CUI. They're not necessarily on a base, I would think. But if you're on a base, that helps you out some as far as CUI goes. And another thing is with construction companies, a lot of them, they'll send off their drawings to some print company to get them printed out for them. Well, guess what? If those drawings are CUI, you've got a big problem there. So maybe you have to buy yourself a large format printer, and haul it around from job site to job site. I don't really know. That's a tough one to cover, but there's different ways it can be covered. You can go all digital. You can issue laptops. You can issue tablets. You can buy your own large format printer, whatever it may be. But there's several different ways to address it, depending on how you do your business and your workflow, and how you might be, what might be open for change. The other thing is that they said that 45% of federal agencies still don't have a formal CUI program, and the CUI rule that was recently published as a proposed rule for the rest of the federal government, I would think that would change that. Of course, it's just proposed, so it hasn't even kicked off yet. But I would think that would change that. But the 45% of the federal government doesn't have a formal CUI program, and they're expecting mom and pop shops to put this in place. Another thing about construction companies, really about manufacturing companies, I should say, that they talked about during this, because this was a session about CUI in manufacturing and construction. Construction took a lot of the discussion because of the complexities there. But in manufacturing, they've said that there's typically we tell our clients that what the CMMC program office says that parts, the actual physical parts themselves, are not CUI. Well, there is some debate about that. So the DCSA does say that physical parts are or physical components, physical objects, however you want to phrase it, they are CUI. So there is a bit of a disagreement there. And then if they are, then technically, really, that poses some more compliance issues. Only other thing I was going to say along these lines is related, but not specifically about construction and manufacturing, but definitely about CUIs, that there have been some intelligence agencies that have complained. Some intelligence agencies that are used to secret classified information, not unclassified, but they're used to the whole secret classification, right? Some intelligence agencies that have complained that CMMC is too complex, so too hard to manage. I guess that was just an anecdote, about how difficult it is. Don't know the particulars about that, but that was very interesting.
So it seems like there was some conversation about AI. Could you delve into what they were saying about using AI for compliance? Sure.
So, I think AI is here, and it's probably here to stay, maybe, and it's in it's in so many parts of your life that you think you realize it, and you probably don't really realize how many parts of your life that AI is in. So we use it in our business. We have services that use AI along with algorithms to go through log events, stuff like that. We use it a lot for other things, but with anything AI, my wife even she teaches some college classes, and when students write speeches, it's obvious when they have one that's written by AI. I mean, it's so obvious that AI wrote one. And not the student. And so you have to know how to use AI. For those college students, I tell my wife, tell them they can use AI, but they got to learn how to use it right, which means that they have to know the subject and they have to know the rules. And so they have to be able to tell AI how to write that, and they have to tell AI how to correct that, right? And so they have to know it. It still leads to the same outcome. It's just that they didn't have to do all the work to get there, which is fine. Calculators, when they came out, I couldn't believe that, we were able to use graphing calculators when I was in school, but for some stuff. But, my kids went to school and they could just use calculators. And I thought, well, how is that teaching them anything if they can use calculators? So AI, same thing. They have to understand. You have to understand everything. So, the same thing applies here to the IT world, to all the rest of the technical world, and to CMMC. Right. So you have to realize what information you're feeding in, where that data is stored at. If it goes out of your environment, what you don't want is to draft all of your policies and all your stuff that may contain security protection data, SPD, at the minimum, CUI also, but have all your configuration and all your technical information in it. You don't want to draft that on ChatGPT, because then it has all that information and can use it to learn on, use it in its learning model. You don't want that. So, and if it's CUI, then that CUI is now out, in the wild world, right? The Wild West. And so you have to make sure that you use AI that is in a closed environment, in an enclave, for instance. You have to put some parameters around it to make sure that it's used properly, that it's a cloud service. So if it's going to do anything with CUI, guess what? It has to be FedRAMP, FedRAMP moderate, authorized or higher, or equivalent, I guess. There are also some tools in the CMMC ecosystem that use AI, and I haven't really necessarily looked into them in depth, but from what I understand, they have their own environment. The information does not get out of that environment, so you have to think about those things. I have down here that define AI boundaries using zero trust principles. Zero trust is it's just a really good principle to start with and operate by, right? Host or configure language models, large language models, in an enclave or in a controlled infrastructure, closed infrastructure, right? Closed environment. Use AI to draft documentation or summarize logs, but again, this is where you got to know how to use AI. Use it to, yesterday I was using it to. This is kind of goofy and dumb, but yesterday I was using it to write some formulas to dig through some giant Excel spreadsheets and get some data for me. And you have it write a formula, you look at it, and you're like, well, okay, that looks right. You use it, and then you're like, well, that data doesn't look right. And so you look at it. Oh, here's the problem. All right, now I'll rewrite it and do this. So you have to understand what it's doing, and you have to understand how to use it. So it applies in my wife's college classes, and it applies in CMMC. Same thing, right? And you can run AI-driven regulatory gaps analysis. It'll help you find things that you've missed, but also just remember that AI can hallucinate. Doesn't mean that it does all the time, but it can catch some of the things that you might have missed. So you can use it to check you. You can use it to help out. Again, however you use it, you've got to know how to use it, and you've got to use it appropriately.
All right, Brooke, rounding out all of the CS5 conference information, what's your biggest takeaway from the whole event?
Well, the biggest takeaway is really the takeaway that I have a lot is that it's about national security. One of the last conferences, Katie Arrington talked about the China threat and how much we're losing to China. This time they talked about the whole Iran thing with the Midnight Hammer and CUI. We talked about. So it's about national security. All aspects of national security. It really is. Yes, it's a big pain in the butt. And any security is going to be a pain because not having security is much easier. You can just run willy-nilly and do whatever you want, but you have a little security and it's inconvenient. The key is keeping that balance, right? Keeping everything secure while still being as productive as possible. The other thing is, I heard this multiple times. In in some of the sessions and also speaking with assessors and C3PAOs, their goal is not to fail you. Their goal is not to stick it to you, or say this is the only way this rule can be implemented. Their goal is to make sure that you are covering those controls and assessment objectives, and what you're doing is working, and what you're doing is covering those objectives properly. So they're assessing, right? It's not an audit necessarily, but they're assessing whether what you're doing meets those controls or not. And so there's some leeway to figure out, whether this works this way or that way or whatever. So it's they're there to just make sure that you're covering those controls, not to be a hard ass, basically, right? So, and one of the panelists said that RPOs, I can't remember who it was that said it, but RPOs are becoming cyber therapists. So, I thought, well, that's really not that far from right. That's true, really. RPOs really are trying to shepherd, companies through this thing and help them out and help them get through it and listen to their moaning and groaning and complaining, and everything else. And again, an RPO is not there to, beat you into shape, but here to say, here's the control and here's some ways you can address it. This is what we recommend, and so at least that's how we address it. And I'm sure that's the way other people address it too. But RPOs being a cyber therapist was a very interesting way to put it.
I know you met a lot of great people at CS5. I think you had a special shout out that we wanted to mention.
Yeah, that's right. So we've had people contact us, and usually it's by phone or email. They watch the podcast, and so they contact us to ask questions, ask us to do an assessment or whatever it might be. But while I was at CS5, I actually ran into somebody that recognized me. So they weren't just a listener, but I guess they actually watched too. But I ran into a gentleman named Mark Murphy. I wanted to give him a shout out. So hey, thanks for watching and thanks for listening. We really appreciate it. So it's always nice to run into people that have listened to or watched our podcasts.
Before we wrap up today's episode, we're going to answer a listener question from @Mascom Adventures on episode 24. They asked, so if you had a CUI drawing and created yourself a Mastercam G-code file, is that G-code still CUI?
Well, the short answer is yes. The much longer answer is we actually had this is still a debate, right? I would say yes to make sure that you're covered. Or when you're doing C3PAO interviews, specifically ask them what they think, and you can go from there. But there's Jim Gopal wrote some books about CUI, really smart guy, and he says, those parts are CUI, that G code is CUI, because it's that information that's derived from drawings or something on that contract, and so it's going to be derived CUI, right? So there is a possibility that G code may be a COTS product, a common off-the-shelf product, So if it's just an off-the-shelf product, a piece that you sell, to Boeing as for commercial planes and also for DoD planes, maybe that would be off-the-shelf stuff, and that wouldn't be CUI. But generally, that G code is going to be CUI. I would go ahead. I counsel all of our clients just consider it CUI, protect it. There are ways to do that. There are ways around, hard stuff that make it really hard to figure out how to keep it encrypted properly and all that kind of fun stuff. But you can still do all that and that be considered CUI. So But we were in a conversation about that. Somebody really smart that I know and respect said, no, it doesn't have to be CUI. You can call it instead of, whatever the actual part name is. You can just call it, lettuce or or table leg or something like that. Something that's not right. And I said, well, that's fine. That's all good. But you've got to have some sort of matrix to map those parts and somewhere. And I said, yeah, and you just keep it safe. And so now you're having to keep, a matrix of names safe somewhere that maps all those parts, which is fine, but it seems like that very well may fit some people. It may work for some people, and if it does, great. If not, there's easy ways, easy-ish ways to say, yeah, it is CUI, and this is how we're going to protect it. So I would just say, yes, G-code is CUI and protect it accordingly.
If you have any questions about what we covered, reach out to us. We're here to help fast track your compliance journey. Text, email, or call in your questions and we'll answer them for free here on the podcast. You can find our contact info at cmmccomplianceguide.com. Stay tuned for our next episode. Until then, stay compliant and stay secure, and make sure to subscribe.